Well, I always lead with a song, some silly song, but I got to be original. We got to go back to I got to give the people. I give the people what they want. And then I go, din, din, it, din, din, it, din, it. Rob McLean, Jason DeBias. We are rolling. This is episode 18 of Sports Debate Tuesday, and we got some fun topics for you. Are we going to talk about golf? If you're waiting to hear about golf, just turn your TV off because I don't know and I don't care, all right? Anybody that plays for charity, I want to know what the hell a charity is, okay? Because as a guy who grew up on Flatbush and a guy who was raised and grew up and lived in Harlem for a decade, I ain't seen no charity come to me. What's the charity? Is it to build the school? What's it for? How are the funds being dispersed? Where are the funds going to go to, okay? Are you just going to keep the money and give a whole bunch of people bread to stand on the line? Don't give me that charity nonsense. We ain't doing no golf today, Rob. And I'm back. So let's get to it.
Let's do it.
All right. You're a no frills guy, right? All right. So the NFL, you're going to love this one. One of our favorite, we talked about this off camera. The NFL announced changes to the Rooney Rule, or announcing possible changes on the Rooney Rule on Tuesday. But one of the more controversial aspects of that rule did not get approved. And while the NFL teams will be required to interview more minority candidates for the jobs, draft pick incentives won't be tied to those hirings. That's what it was about. They were trying to give people draft pick incentives to interview. To hire. Sorry, team owners tabled the measure, and if it's approved, it would have rewarded franchises that hired minority coaches with higher draft picks. Rob, what are your thoughts, and if something like this went through, how do you think it would affect African American candidates going forward?
Yeah, honestly, I don't want to say this like a half-hearted attempt, but I appreciate that they're trying to revisit the Rooney Rule and seeing that it's very necessary, but obviously it's not having the effect that it could have or that intended to have, whether, foreseen or not. I thought the Rooney Rule was a great step going forward, but it wasn't really a legitimate excuse or a legitimate explanation or solution to how to incorporate all types of races into head coaching as opposed to just one type. And that's how you grow the game. I just think that they didn't go about it the right way. When you start doing incentives on something so important as the draft, getting higher draft picks, I think the draft already has its fallacies in how you get to the number one, the number two, number three. It's just, it could be revisited or revised, because I think the top team shouldn't be the worst team in the league. It should be a team that deserves a player to get better. It shouldn't be a team that just tanks the entire season. So, yeah, the Rooney Rule being incorporated with draft picks just doesn't work for me, because you want it to be surrounded or based upon hiring the minority, but also hiring the best for that job. You don't want to get to a situation where you have owners trying to sign, let's say, a not so great coach just because they want a higher draft pick, and then the next year they use that coach to get that player better, the higher draft pick player better, and then dump the coach for a second-year player that's a little bit better, that's a little bit more seasoned, and then you bring in another coach. So you now it's like a 2-year kind of stint where you knew what you were going to do with that coach, and now they're out the door. So I think there's a lot of there just has to be a different idea of how to incorporate more African American coaches, and I think it really starts at a lower level. I don't think it should have anything to do with the head coaching. I think it should have to do with the position coaching. If you can incorporate more minorities into the position coaching, they'll have the opportunities to be in the room to be a head coach, as opposed to just pulling guys out of places that they really don't have the experience to be a head coach. So I just think they really got to take a step back and start trying to see what are they really trying to achieve with the rule, and I think that really should be the next step forward.
Rob, I think I know what they're trying to achieve with the rule, and I'm glad you left off there because that's exactly where I wanted to start before I delve into this. I think the original Rooney rule is to make had to have to make sure you interview at least one African American candidate, and for a while it looked like it was working, right? In fact, in the the AFC North, for a short time, three of the four coaches just in that division alone were African American, right? You had Coach Lewis, you had Tomlin, and you had Hugh Jackson. So I mean, not only were there more African, Todd Bowles with the Jets. Not only, I mean, you had close to eight of them, maybe. I mean, this is a very short show, so we're not going to delve into naming them off, but I can say that there were more. And now I think they're only down to three again. And everybody's just wondering what the hell the problem is. And okay, Marvin Lewis had to go. Hugh Jackson won one game out of 35. So the only thing that they proved is that black coaches aren't allowed to suck. White
That's
coaches
it.
can suck and keep their job forever. Jason Garrett had this team that had just maniacal weapons on offense and defense and special teams every single year, and all we got were 8-8s and 8-8s and 8-8s. Okay, and then you got Mike Tomlin, who's an African American coach. His worst year was 8-8. A year he missed Antonio Brown. A year he missed Le'Veon Bell. A year he missed Big Ben Roethlisberger. Those are the three people that make you a Super Bowl champion. So I think the reason why they came up with this rule, I think, and this is my conspiracy, my little rabbit hole head, tinfoil hat. I think if they make the proposal extreme, that they can come in the middle that makes sense. There is no way in hell any sensible owner is going to say, hey, you know what? Tell you what, if you hire an African American candidate, you get some draft picks. Oh, good for you. And a coach is going to be like, oh man, cool. Let me just hire this dude and see what happens. It's an uncomfortable situation for the owner. It's an uncomfortable situation for the head coach to have to deal with someone like that for a year just to get to know someone, just to see if they're good or not. And take all of that, multiply it by 5. It is uncomfortable to the African American candidate who, through pure meritocracy, thinks he deserves just to be able to sit in the room and have an interview, much less get hired. They need to find a way to break their good old boys club. We talked about this off camera, okay? I want them to have incentives from the bottom. All right, if there's a guy who's doing stats, or a guy doing analytics, or a guy doing this, don't hire this guy because that's the coach's son's friend. Okay, no, enough of that. How about get some African Americans in there? How about have them understand? How about they get to the interview process through pure meritocracy? Because right now our second best coach in the NFL is Mike Tomlin. He's the best coach no one talks about. There's Belichick. And then there's Tomlin, Peyton, Carroll, all over here. Okay,
And
please.
what's crazy about that is, I mean, all respect to Big Ben, but I feel like Tomlin has been stuck with Big Ben because the Rooney family wants him to stay there forever because they won a championship, 10 years ago.
Yeah,
it's just like, and I think that's the whole thing with Antonio Brown. I think Antonio Brown's got his own things. I think plenty of people had their own things, but what was going on was like, there's a changing of the guard, but then there's not really a changing of the guard. Juju Smith-Schuster gets to come in and take Antonio Brown's spot, but then Big Ben, he doesn't get tested on what he's been doing the last 5 years. I mean, he's been injured or he's been mediocre at best.
He dodged a big rape bullet
year.
too, by the way.
I
don't want to bring that up because I'm innocent until proven. I always believe in innocent until proven guilty. But what's up with all the African American people who why are they guilty until proven innocent? Why? What's up with that? God, I'm trying really hard not to bring race into it because sports is one of those things that give you a break from all this race nonsense. I mean, we're black, we're white, we're American Indian, we're God knows what, and we're all in it together on the field, man. Nobody even knows. God, Rob.
Yeah, absolutely. I just think when it comes to pro sports, I think what's actually interesting in that is that all of those people have money more than the average person. So it has nothing to do about race at that point, honestly. I think a lot of it is about class.
No, yeah.
Because
there's
a lot of them
the wealthy and there's everybody else. Those are the two races.
Well, but even for them is, there's wealthy and then the elite wealth where, they don't really even need each other, because they all have their own wealth at this point,
Right.
So it's just interesting to see that, most of them don't want to blow their jobs, and most of them, and then when the conversation really comes up, you have to really mean what you say because you could lose your money, you could not be gaining money anymore, it's
Yeah.
very interesting that you get to see those public kind of displays of um, emotion only if it really matters, only
Yeah.
if it really matters.
Yeah, again, for me, going back to what I was saying, sometimes proposing an extreme brings everybody back to the norm where people just operate like mammals. If you remember, like Martin Luther King, when it's equal rights, civil rights, uh, uh, everything the man stood for, vote, the right to vote without without being assaulted to the polls, and everybody thought he was a pain in the butt. Everything's about black or whatever, and then you have Malcolm X saying, you know what? White man shoots at me, I'm gonna put a bullet in his head. Basically, I'm paraphrasing. I don't call that murder. I call that intelligence. So when you have Malcolm X come along, you know what everybody was saying? How come you can't be more like Martin Luther King?
Hmm.
And boom, and now flatline. Boom. Now there's equality. Now there's something that's normal. But I believe, like, whether someone supports Martin Luther King or whether someone supports Malcolm X, just eye for an eye, where Martin believes an eye for an eye leaves both people blind. The one doesn't exist without the other. And I think it took this stupid gesture. It took this stupid gesture to have people take deep consideration on interviewing some of these African American candidates.
Yeah, I think it's difficult because when you step so far, when you come back, I don't know where they're going to come back to. I like minimal draft incentive or
It's not
I
gonna.
just
They're not
think
gonna do
that
it. It's
they're
not gonna
going.
happen.
Yeah, I just think they're not really in a place to help the African American coaches, especially what we're talking about at the bottom. I think we're almost pushing guys who are not ready, like Fred Kitchens. Obviously he's not black, but he's a guy who got a chance to be in a situation long before he should have been. And I don't think that's a situation you want to put any coach into, black, white, Hispanic, and it doesn't matter. It just you want the right guy for the right situation, and it shouldn't be the owner's friends or this guy is a up and coming coach. It's like, no, get an established. I mean,
Kitchens was a head scratcher, dude. I
because
mean, he
you
knew
heard it
offense.
before and you seen it after. So sad. But
I
continue. Yeah,
mean, Adam Gase was a head scratcher to me. The head coach, Kingsbury from
he did
Arizona.
nice.
Kingsbury from Arizona didn't even have a winning record in college.
Yeah,
To just to whoosh to fly up to the top of the chain of command. These are all head scratchers. I'm not saying they're undeserving. I mean, but do you know what a black coach would have to do to jump the line like that?
you know,
He'd have to invent he'd
or
have to invent
have a
the I
losing record.
formation.
Who's the coach? I forget his name. I think he's at Louisville now.
Yeah.
And he was African American coach. He went to Texas. He didn't do well at Texas. I forget. I think his name was not Smart,
Oh,
but
football.
yeah, football,
Yes.
college football.
Yep.
And
I know.
African American coach, he did really well. And I think he was at Louisville. And then the whole Lamar Jackson and Mekhi Becton and all those guys are coming out of there now. And it's just like, I'm not saying it's all due to him, but it's like, it's just interesting to me that there's never that young up and coming African American coach in football,
Yeah.
when yet there's so many African American athletes. Where what do you think would could connect easier to an African American athlete in football? Someone that maybe comes from a similar background, a similar culture, or somebody that's always been in a position of power, always been on the other side of a different culture, always been. So
Yeah.
to me, it
I
seems
mean,
a lot
who's
smarter to
the
get
young guy
somebody
that
a lot
got?
closer.
Yeah, the young guy that got was Mike Tomlin. He worked out fine. He was younger than some. I think he was younger than two of his players when he got the job, which is a rarity. And he goes, they interview him and he just sits down and says, "We're gonna run the ball and play defense." Everybody's like, "I
I
love
like
this
this guy.
guy in Pittsburgh." What? Yeah. Come on, they're like the New York Giants of Pennsylvania. They like are like '80s style, like, or kind of the fans didn't need a quarterback to light up the scoreboard in football supporter communities. They didn't need someone to throw for 400 yards. They're waving towels for sacks, my man, and turnovers. They're
It's
waving
true.
towels for special teams. That is a special kind of place, and look what they did. They gave this guy a chance. Rooney practicing what he preaches, and God, if there's anyone that's a poster boy for how things can work out for the better, it's definitely him. And let's not forget our guy in Miami, man. I mean, they were slated to finish like 1-15. The guy won 5 games with that bunch.
Right.
What?
Right.
Yeah, and for me, I'm just glad they kept him because what happens is you have an African American coach, and this happens in basketball too. Um, during the rebuilding years, everybody knows it's a rebuilding year. In basketball, they call it something entirely different. What is it called? Tank? Was it tank in the season? Was it what? I forgot.
Tanking, yeah.
Yeah, whatever.
Tanking.
Yeah, and usually white. I know a lot of white coaches that survive that, but not a lot of black coaches that survive that.
True.
And
True. Because I think again it comes down organizationally. Like if you're not hanging out with the owners, and I'm not saying it doesn't happen interracially, but it's just like why would an African American coach connect more readily to an African American player? It's the same reason maybe why a Caucasian GM might, float a little closer to a Caucasian GM or owner might float a little closer to a Caucasian head coach. It's a
nice.
little bit culture, maybe the same movies, maybe the same music, maybe the same parents listen to the same things, or did the same things, went camping, or just different cultures.
Yeah,
Um,
and I think it's an evolution, and there's some frustration on everybody's part, but I'm not trying to say they should be happy with the NFL's become, even though that's not untrue. Like if you're, I mean, we're having the same. If we're Robin, we're having this conversation 2 decades ago. We're not talking about the coach. We're just talking about black quarterbacks. You
correct.
even had people saying they weren't even. You had some of these so-called experts saying they weren't even smart enough to play the game. You look at someone like Lamar Jackson. They weren't even. These guys. I forgot his name. They weren't even thinking about quarterback. They were thinking about him playing wide receiver. So
Yeah.
the NFL's come a long way where not only is the evolution, or should I say revolution, of the black quarterback conspicuous, but if we name our top 5 NFL quarterbacks today, I think 3 or 4 of them might be African American. You throw Brady and Breeze in there, whatever. You got Russell Wilson, who's African American. You got Lamar Jackson, Mahomes, who was Super Bowl champion and regular season MVP the year before. So those are 3 off the top of my head. Dak
At 20,
Prescott.
24,
Yeah.
yeah, Dak Prescott, and you got Deshaun Watson. You got,
Ooh. I
yeah,
forget John.
you got.
I forget John
hmm
Watson. I forget Watson.
It's all over. It's all over. I mean, even Jacoby Brissett, a great journeyman that I think maybe in a couple years could be a starting quarterback for somebody somewhere. It's just they're all out there. But then again, yeah, Jacoby Brissett has been given a lot of opportunities. I got to give him that. But you don't see a lot of Jared Stidhams coming through. I mean, yeah, that's new. A 6th-round pick given the chance to start. So. It's just very interesting. Um, yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's a really good topic. I'm glad they're trying to mix the rule up a little bit.
Yeah, I thought you and me'd have be a little bit more enraged about it, but I think we're almost glad that the stupid gesture happened because at least it brings attention, right?
Yeah, I
This
haven't
ain't
heard this
gonna
in a
pass.
while. Yeah,
This ain't gonna pass. If this passes, then we're gonna have an episode where we're gonna ask. Has everybody, on a debate show where we're supposed to disagree on something, we're gonna talk about how people have lost their effing mind. So
yeah.
yeah, so yeah.
Especially with like losing, and I'm sure a small percentage of fans from Oakland, from the Raiders moving to Las Vegas. So I'm sure that side of the fan base is taking a hit too.
No doubt.
Um, it's
Yeah.
very interesting.
Okay, I think that's
Covered it
pretty
all
good,
there.
man. God, we just getting started, dude. Rob, we just getting started.
Yeah, man.
Okay, topic number 2. Recently, former
Yeah.
NBA champion, magnetic basketball personality Paul Pierce, former Celtic and former New Jersey Net, for a cup of coffee with Kevin Garnett. Made a top 5 NBA GOAT list, greatest of all time, and was adamant about leaving out LBJ, LeBron James. His 5, Rob, were Michael Jordan, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Russell, Aaron,
Russell who?
Aaron Russell, I think.
No, I'm
No,
thinking
no,
he's
no, no,
saying
no,
Bill
no.
Russell.
Bill Russell
Bill
from the
Bill
Celtics.
Russell.
Yeah,
15
very
champs,
deserving.
yeah.
You kidding? Come on.
15 championships, yeah. I had a hard time. I
Yeah,
had a hard time leaving him off.
you can't. You can't.
He
Well, if you have a top 5 list, he belongs on it. If
he's in my 6. He's
oh
like right there.
yeah, we can make an argument for these 5.
Yeah, of
So
course, of course.
so he's 3. So we got Jordan, Kareem, Russell. We got Irvin Magic Johnson, and his 5th is Kobe Bryant. And the question is, just for embrace debate purposes, did he get it right? I'd like this one. I'd like to start first on this one.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Thanks, Rob. It's a great idea, man. See, it's why I don't come up with these things. I mean, it's beyond me. I'm glad I got you here to carry me. All right, let me give you my top 5 and tell you why I disagree with this dude. I like number 1, Jordan, the GOAT. 6 finals, 6 MVPs, and I'm not just hanging my hat on that. Just his competitive nature and his willingness to win and motivate people around him. Sometimes it was tough love, and a lot of people don't love that. I'm not, and last week I criticized him for it, but I don't not love. I love that. That's my school. That's how iron sharpened iron. That's how we come out with little whiskers under our chin. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is a great argument for number 1 because of his college career all the way up to his professional career. 3 NCAA championships, 5 rings, I believe, with the Los Angeles Lakers. And yeah, he's my number 2. Russell, gotta get Russell for my number 3. I really, really like that because I know the game has not evolved and people, they're in better condition, and there's a 3-point line now. But if you take into consideration the things he did without the benefit of the 3-point line, without the benefit of the 3-second defensive rule, where people could just crowd under the rim, and he has to force his way through that. I gotta give him the rub on that. Number 4, I go Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant is a savage, and I know he got 3 of those rings with Shaq. And some people have a hard time putting him on a GOAT list when they believe that he wasn't even the best player on his team, never mind the best Laker. But for me, 5 rings. Shaq don't win it without him. He don't win without Shaq. He won without Shaq. And maybe I'm a little bit of a prisoner of the moment because I'm living in the LA County, and you just got this oodles of videos since he passed away about this young man's greatness on and off the court. And 5th, and I can make an argument a week later to move him up to as far as 3. LeBron James. I gotta disagree with Paul Pierce on this. Magic Johnson doesn't make my top 5 list. He was an assist master. LeBron has more assists than he does. He had 3 rings. LeBron had 3 rings and more finals appearances. He had to carry his team when Kareem got hurt. LeBron carried some of his teams kicking and screaming. Do you remember we had a fun discussion about the Cleveland Cavaliers, that last championship run where everybody was hurt?
Oh yeah.
This team was hurt. Toronto was up 2 games, and it didn't even look like, and Boston didn't even look like they're going to make it to the finals. We were thinking to ourselves, they're probably telling LeBron, like, yo, let's just take the rest of the summer off. This ain't our year. This man brought that Cavaliers team, and before he took his talents to the beach, he also got to the finals with a less talented team than that, brought them to the finals. So this is a guy whose greatness is actually going to be already, all he has to do is just show up with Anthony Davis right now, and he's going to be on the Mount Rushmore of the best 4 Lakers. And his career is not even finished. The man has 3 years left. His story's not even written yet. By the time his story's written, I might put him up to number 3. But Rob, those are my top 5, and that's why I think Paul Pierce is out of his freaking mind, leaving LeBron James off this list. He's a better assist person than Larry Bird, and that's saying a lot.
It is. And I mean, his career is not over. That's the whole thing. We're talking about people whose careers are over, and then we're talking about a guy who's still playing and still going to play at least high competitive level for the next 3 years. He's still going to be doing that, putting up massive numbers. How do you not? I mean, I think the numbers alone, and we've always known this because of the longevity of his career, but it's always been. So I'm gonna go to from 5 to 1. I mean, I'll go to 1 to 5. It's fine. I mean, MJ is obvious, so I don't really have to talk about that. He's got a whole documentary. You can just, 6 for 6. Never got to a 7.
Baptized through fire, man. The Pistons.
Yeah,
Never mind who we beat in the finals. Baptized through fire, beating the Pistons and then later on the Knicks.
Patrick Ewing 3 times, 4 times.
Yeah. Yeah,
Stop
Reggie
Ewing
Miller,
4 times.
All of
That's
these are
four.
all of these are
That's
tough
a
outs.
possibility.
We're not even talking about the finals. We're talking about just getting out of that conference. Reggie Miller was a tough
out of
out.
the East.
The Miami Heat, when Pat Riley coached them, they're a tough out.
They
Along
lost to them
Lonzo.
one year. And then the whole thing blew up. The Magic beat the Bulls.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah.
Orlando.
So
You had Shaq. That's right.
yeah, man. Penny, Shaq. Oh man. So yeah.
So you have MJ as your first.
MJ is my obvious one. My number 2, which I can't believe people don't talk about, how it's not on anybody's top 5. This is my number 2, Wilt Chamberlain, because this is the man. This is the man. I mean, if you have Bill on that list, how do you not have Wilt? And then same on, because Bill is my 6. I wanted to involve LeBron because I wanted to involve LeBron, but Wilt is my number 2. Bill is probably not my number 6, but he's my number 6. He's not my number 8.
You had to do that, huh?
You
he scored 100 points in a game, right?
Had to, man.
Guess who the team was?
56 rebounds in a game.
Guess who the team was?
Let me guess. The Knicks.
Why you had to bring it up, right? You had to put him
Always.
there, right?
Always. But I mean, hey, man, that's 100 in the game, man. In a pro game. I don't care if everybody is 6'5" and you're 7'1". The same thing that Bill had to deal with. And the funny thing, this is why Bill's not on my top 5, is that just the same as people had to stack the paint, he could stack the paint. So it made his defensive game a little bit where it helped him being obviously a 7-footer as well as long and quick as he was. So he was able to defend perfectly in a time like that.
And it was the era of the big man, right? I mean, lighting up the scoreboard with 3-pointers is not a thing back then.
Yeah, I mean, even spreading the floor was a thing, but it wasn't. It wasn't really a thing. So Wilt is definitely my number 2.
All right, who you got 3?
My number 3 is Kareem. Second most talented big man of all time. Created the skyhook, the most undefeatable shot of all time. And then you have, he just played the whole game. He was able to do all the skills as a 6'11". He was a true power forward. I think that he was. Everybody talks about Tim Duncan being the best power forward of all time, and a lot of people put Kareem as a center. But for me, I think he was a power forward before his time, and in my eyes, he's the best power forward of all time. Just because if you're going to put people where they deserve to be,
No doubt.
My number 4 is LeBron, because I just think that what he's capable of doing physically. I don't care where you are. I think he's always going to be able to get fouled and get to the line and be able to play a game. I think that he would have refined his game a lot more against tougher competition. So I think that you would have seen a better LeBron in different eras. And I think that's what a lot of people miss in that conversation, is who's better than who. Is like, oh yeah, Jordan was baptized through all of that, that hellish run that he had to do, but many other people could have been too. Imagine what Ewing would have became. Imagine what John Starks would have became if they beat
Miller.
If they beat Jordan twice
Miller,
of those
Barkley,
6
Malone,
years.
Stockton. Yeah.
All of them. Yeah. And so, LeBron's my number 4. And then my number 5 that I had to put on here instead of Bill Russell, and maybe this is like my own personal, but I think this is the original triple-double king. And he was the best combo guard that I believe that ever played the game. And I just think that a lot of his games weren't even taped. So my number 5 is Oscar Robinson, because he's just, I think was the epitome of a combo guard. And that's a rare thing nowadays. I mean, Allen Iverson, another one of my favorite players, another one of the top 10, top 15, probably best players of all time, one of the best scorers of all time. And you're just really hard to find a combo guard that can play both sides of the ball, as well as, because he also had 4 or 5 blocks on average, 4 or 5 steals on average in the game. That's it's just crazy numbers. So I think he was like the small man's LeBron, but he put up the numbers, man. That's crazy. Triple double over the career is
Yeah.
it's crazy.
Isn't it amazing that there's so much correlation between this and our sport, volleyball? And
Totally.
Wilt Chamberlain played professional volleyball. Outside hitter, not a middle, a 7 foot outside hitter.
Right.
Oscar Robinson, his son is Bruno Oscar Schmidt, Olympic gold medalist, Ali San's partner. A lot of people don't
Yikes.
know that. How cool is that? So,
That's crazy.
the best, I really like your five because, and even though he doesn't make my list, and even now he still doesn't, he just, as far as honorable mentions and like really great players that people don't talk about enough, people make an argument for Wilt, okay? People are going to make an argument for Kobe and this and that, and Russell always comes up in that time period. Bill Russell, I can't believe I keep forgetting this guy's name. Yeah, Oscar Robinson. I like that. Yeah, so the hell was Paul Pierce thinking? Leaving
I
LeBron
know,
James
man. I
off
mean,
that.
I think Paul is just a guy that's like in the moment. I think it's hard to. I think in everybody's mind, there's three people on the five that are indisputable. And then I think after that, it's kind of up to one's your favorite player, one's a guy you want people to know about. And so I think him being a player who played, he's kind of like caught in the times of playing. Because how is he not putting Dr. J on that list? You know what I mean? How are you not putting KG on that list? You know what I mean? If you're going to just talk about pure talent, I think like he's just one of those guys who has the barbershop talks and then kind of just
Well, he
comes
has
through and
well, Robbie has memory bias. Not, you know
yeah,
what
he
recency
does.
bias is. You remember what happened last. Memory bias is when you're a volleyball player, right? You played someone 10 years ago. He wasn't a good player then, but he's like a really good player now. But the only thing you have to go on is, sometimes you judge someone by what they used to be instead of what they are now, and it's not a good thing, but it is a very human thing, and as a volleyball coach, I could say the same thing about some of the coaches, some of the young coaches. Uh, um, I'll just plug someone in no one knows about, maybe no one cares about, but I care. Yoel Sanchez. When I first met him, he's the head coach of Lehman College. Didn't seem like much of a coach for me. He just seemed like a player that that knew the X's and O's and didn't necessarily know how to win, but he knew how to play and didn't really know how to articulate what was right and what's wrong. But the dude's still coaching now. I tell you what, I and my limbic brain have to not have memory bias. The man, he's producing kids
Yeah,
that are playing for national teams now for their country in Poland and Dominican Republic. And honestly, if it wasn't for him, like Lehman probably wouldn't even been the 3 seed, the 2 seed. So, right, you got a guy who's like half the age of some of these guys who call them coaches, and that's just an example I was trying to say. I think Paul Pierce is suffering from memory bias.
totally.
He did beat LeBron. He probably does think LeBron was lucky to win that Game 7 against the Celtics that brought him into that first final. So that's where I think that comes from, that little barbershop mentality where you kind of stuck on that back in the day, Esh. Make sense?
Yeah,
Damn. All right, nailed
definitely.
it. Nailed it. Love your top five, dude. Yo, love your top five, my dude.
Thank you, man. You too.
All right, topic number 3.
Yeah, buddy.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is Sports Debate Tuesday, but we are pre-airing on Monday night. A little special thing. For any of you watching this live, make sure you watch Michael Vick's story. It's on HBO. I really, really like his story as far as redemption. We had a topic about that, an episode about that, right?
Mm-hmm.
About just
Yeah, yeah.
because some things seem so unforgivable, but the way some people come back and the way they lead by example and not by exception, definitely a must see tonight on ESPN at 8 o'clock Eastern. Wow, means it's on in 7 minutes. But we ain't talking about Michael Vick. We talking about Memorial Day. Today is Memorial Day, and we are going to do something out of the sports norm in tribute to salute the people who have fallen and to remember the people who have fallen. So on this Memorial Day has come and gone, and we all take the time to salute the fallen, the men and women who paid the ultimate price fighting for our ideals and our commitments to freedom. So through the course of the weekend, we feed cable TV and regular television feeds you this almost oversaturation of war movies. And I think war movies are important because even though a lot of the war movies are fiction, it makes you appreciate the realness of what it took to survive. Never mind emerge victorious in some of these battles that seems unwinnable. Bring your attention to D-Day, right? The intelligence got screwed up. The airstrike got screwed up because they were getting shot out of the sky. People were just jumping out of planes. The land invasion got screwed up because the bombers never bombed, whatever. So they had no business taking that beach, and just some through brave acts of bravery and some awfully good officers, they took the beach. So in tribute to Memorial Day, we're going to do it our way. And we're going to name our top 5 war movies of all time. And
Yeah, man.
somewhere, oh my God, please don't say I got my piece of paper because I'm a little old. And sometimes I forget. Rob, what's your number 5?
Oh man, it's hard to say. I mean, for me, I'm gonna go old school for this one, and my number 5 is Glory.
Oh, nice, Matt.
The movie
Matthew
back in the day
Broderick.
about the Civil War. Yeah, man. And Denzel Washington. I mean, there's a crazy amount of great characters back in that movie, and it's just I think a little nostalgic because it was like a movie that wasn't really able to see, and then we got to see one day in like history class or something like that, and it was just yeah, I just definitely felt it was like a real connection there just because it was I don't know. It's just you can kind of feel like people being scared, but being in a tough situation, having to be disciplined is just a very interesting type of life. And then I don't want to ruin the movie, but at the end, everybody especially in the Civil War times, you got to give a lot of ultimate sacrifices because there's not a lot of surgeons. The it's very brutal back in the day. So yeah, but Glory is definitely one of my all time favorite movies.
Well, just to show our audience, I have a wide array of movies. I am going to do the best I can because I am very, very biased when it comes to war movies. I am neurologically fixated, obsessed with World War II and all things World War II. Okay,
I agree. I
um,
agree.
I am a Gulf War vet. I served during that time. My kid sister served 2 tours in Afghanistan. My father, Vietnam. Grandfather, both sides were Korean War and World War II. So I can definitely salute the fallen and the people who served, and definitely give tribute to the ones who are alive. Even though that's not what Memorial Day is about. That's more of a Veterans Day thing. My number 5. You got to get a drink. You getting a drink for someone? Okay. My number 5 is Pork Chop Hill. This is a black and white about the Korean War, where the Koreans and the Americans were fighting over a hill that had no tactical advantage, no reason to take the hill, just battling back and forth, and just um, it was a useless. They call it like a useless battle because it served no tactical advantage. They were trying to take the hill on principle alone because they knew whoever took the hill would have a psychological advantage. It's like, you know what? We don't want the hill. We don't need the hill, but you can't have it either. And if we can take this hill, and if we can take a hill from you that doesn't matter, imagine the things we're going to fight for that do. And that's one of the things that a lot of people didn't get from the movie. They're like, I like the movie and I like the acting, but why the hell would someone fight for something that doesn't mean anything? And they're right. It doesn't mean anything, and it does. I mean, you don't want a whole bunch of people to die needlessly, but I kind of get the movie. Pork Chop Hill, number 4.
Okay. Hey, man. All right. For my number 4, it's hard to say because I wrote a couple down, but I kind of mixed a couple because it's like different era. But my number 4 is probably The Patriot.
Mel
Mel
Gibson.
Gibson back in the day. Revolutionary War. I'm a history buff of all times, so I like maybe not as much the World War One, which I didn't see 1917, but yeah, I love World War Two. But
Good
back in the
movie.
day, it's just a little bit more personal. A little bit more uh, people being involved in what's going on with the scenes and what's actually going on in the uh, like people were actually fighting for a reason as opposed to just being a part of the military. There was a lot of militias back then, so it's very interesting how you had to play the political part even in the everyday life, but you still had to be a part of the war. So it's just very interesting.
I really like the Patriot.
Yeah, the
That's Heath
Patriot, man.
Heath Ledger, right? Played his son in that.
No, Mel Gibson. Oh yeah, Heath
Yeah,
Ledger's
he
in it.
played his
Yeah, yeah,
son.
for
He was
sure,
the
for sure.
eldest son.
Yeah, great actor. I mean, I
Oh,
don't. It's
the whole
crazy. I
damn
forget he's in that.
cast, right?
Yeah, a great cast.
Man, what a
Great
scary
cast.
moment just having to stand in front of someone and just take that musket bullet like a man.
Cannon fire. Yeah, man. It's everything. Everything.
All right, Rob, my number 4 is Hurt Locker. The female director escapes me, but she's one of the handful of female directors, period, never mind to direct a war movie. Jeremy Renner, basically showing an appreciation, military, well, basically we'll just call it a military bomb squad. These guys are dressed in these almost spaceman suits, and their objective is to defuse bombs. So definitely takes place in the Middle East. Anthony Mackie is also in it. Very, very, very good cast. And Jeremy Renner just really shows just how hard it is. you like if you take everything personally, you can't do the job. Like the only way to do that kind of job is to accept the fact that you're already dead. If you accept the fact you're already dead, you don't have to worry about things that everybody else consider imminent danger. And I really like Hurt Locker. That's my number 4.
Nice, nice. I haven't seen that one quite yet, but I'll get to it.
It's a must see, man. You'll like it. You'll like it. If you like Jeremy
Um,
Renner too, man, he's a good dude.
just because you're going a little bit more World War II, I'll go to one that was a little more outside of that. Just because it's all war again. I really love. It's one of my favorites, just because I love someone being like learning the basics and coming up and understanding like a whole nother culture and being involved in it. But The Last Samurai, it's like one of
Is
my
that Tom
all-time
Cruise?
favorites. Yeah, Tom
Yeah,
Cruise.
man,
Yeah, man.
you've gone
Just
off the
like
deep end.
yeah, I mean, these are my favorite. These are personal favorites. I don't think these are all timers. But I mean, I think they're up there. It's just again, just how times change, and but there's still some things that don't have to be integrated to be beautiful and amazing and artistic. And I think there is something to be said about having. It's okay to have a business culture, but you still have to understand where you came from, so that you don't lose the things that you've learned from the past. So. Culture is very important, and I think that you can't lose your culture as far as you go, as far as you grow as a person. And to me, that movie is important as well as great.
Yeah.
So definitely
Hey,
love that movie.
if you've seen little spoiler for 1917, the entire movie was a single camera set.
I know. I
There were
can't
no
wait to watch
cut-ins and
that.
cut-outs. It was almost done like a play.
Just straight
Like
through.
yeah, like
Yeah,
it was almost like a theater play because you didn't they didn't cut. You just went straight through. So that was your number 3, right?
my number 3. Yeah,
All right. Um,
you're number 3.
my number 3 is Saving Private Ryan. Tom Hanks, Matt Damon, Edward Burns, Tom Sizemore, great cast. Even Paul Giamatti was in it for a little bit. Ted
Hmm.
Danson
Vin
and
Diesel.
Vin Diesel. That's right.
Yeah, he
This
got
is why
shot
we
in the
don't take
first one.
children. Right?
That's right. That's right.
So I like Saving Private Ryan because it was one of the few movies that show you a full appreciation of the gore of what happens in a wartime situation. I mean, Glory did a really good job of that. But if you notice a lot of the old school World War II movies, they don't get that deep in the detail because some people just don't want to watch it. I'm sure a lot of people who watch Saving Private Ryan, if they couldn't get past that first part, the first 20 minutes, and they turned off the TV, they missed an excellent movie. They missed an excellent movie because there were certain things where there was principle involved. Why are we sending 8 guys to look for one person?
That's the
Little
truth.
history lesson. There was a war movie called the Sullivan Brothers. The Sullivan Brothers are 5 guys in World War II that decided to join the Navy because they knew if they signed up, they had a better chance of choosing their duty station. So all 5 of them wanted to be together. They all signed up together. They wound up on a ship. Ship got hit. Deliver the bad news to the parents. Which kid did I lose? All of them. All 5. So a
All
great
5.
storyline where
Crazy.
it was a great storyline where all the Ryans were together, but because of the Sullivan rule, they moved them all to different duty stations, and they all ended up dying the same day anyway, with one guy missing, possibly still alive, and sometimes it's orders. right? It's a principle. You have orders, and sometimes you do want this guy to get if you have a chance to get someone the hell out of this god awful war, and bring them home to their parents. Yeah, sure. Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah,
Imagine.
man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think there's any way to prevent people just not dying. I mean, I get it. Being in the same unit is pretty much asking for it, but I mean, they also might be great teammates or great communicators. So, yeah, it's really
Rob, you're my
difficult to
brother
see.
from another mother. I want you in my foxhole, dude.
Yeah, exactly. So it's tough to say. So,
Number
yeah,
two.
I mean, Saving Private Ryan is obviously on my list, but I'm just gonna, because I want to be able to, give out
Explore,
some
have a little
extra,
fun.
you know. But yeah, I mean, that's like my favorite movie of all. Like, I don't know how that can't be your favorite, but it's definitely my favorite of all time. My number two then will be Black Hawk Down. I love Black Hawk Down. I think Black Hawk Down is such an amazing show of how Americans are trying to be so implementive in the way that well, everybody has their process, and you have to respect everybody's place and American ingenuity. Also, how long it takes for things to go through the paperwork, and what that means when that happens. That lives are definitely lost, or at least the opportunity for lives to be saved are hindered. And then going into places without correct intelligence, or trying to do an operation before, while not listening to correct intelligence. It's disastrous, and that's what that whole situation was. But again, it was an amazing movie. I really loved it, and it showed just the heart and tenacity of a soldier, and what they'd have to do in a situation, and why they train as hard as they do. I think that's what a lot of these movies is. You see these crazy stories, but a lot of the times, they could give you 10 more just like them. It just happens to be the one that gets on the movie. So
That's right. Yeah. Listen, there's a whole bunch of honorable mentions here, right? My girl's gonna be mad. I didn't do Good Morning Vietnam. You know
I was thinking about it.
that's a classic. Mike Salick says, "What's up?" He's
What's up,
watching.
Mikey?
He's watching right now live, and yeah, big up to you, brother. I want to call you later because Kenny asked me to call you because I know you're dealing with something, but I ain't gonna say, we're live. I ain't trying to air your laundry like that, but I wanted to come give you a shout out. Yeah, like Good Morning Vietnam deserves an honorable mention. Like, there's so many worthy movies. Platoon, almost how can you not? Apocalypse Now. These are all movies that through some bandwagon fallacies, everybody else's, but not necessarily mine. And my number two is Tears of the Sun.
Love that movie, man.
Tears of the
Bruce
Sun,
Willis.
Bruce
Ooh.
Willis. Bruce Willis basically is a Navy SEAL team that was assigned to extract a doctor out of a village and either Tutu or some kind of African village where, yes, stay safe, Mike, where they had to escort a doctor and a priest. I think out of this African village because the village was scheduled to be, how can I say, genocided by some paramilitary group,
Overran
overran
by
and eventually genocided. So,
yeah.
so basically they go for the people. I'm giving it away, but when they go to take the doctor refuses to leave without the people who can actually walk. There's certain people that couldn't, and basically they took everyone that could walk, and then the military group basically killed everyone that was left in the village. And my favorite scene in the village that made me watch, and I watched this every time I watch this movie, I watch the same scene 5 times. They were going by a village that was in the middle of a genocide, where someone was raping the women, they were shooting the men, killing the kids or whatever, and the Navy SEAL team is just watching them, and it's like, if we go around, they won't see us, and it's like. They couldn't in good conscience, and this movie has a special place in my heart because I joined the military because I watched GI Joe. I wanted to be a GI Joe. Sir, there's a handful of guys like me that joined the military because we want to defend people that can't help themselves. There are people out there that are evil. There are people out there that have fun preying on the weak. There are people out there that like cutting up children and raping women. And for me, I tell myself, I'm like, I would love to fucking get a group of guys and just give them the ass kicking they deserve. And that I could have just saw that one scene in that movie alone, one of the best scenes ever, where the guy says, "Sir, but our rules of engagement," he says, "We're already fucking engaged." and they go in there and they get, oh, it was such a great feeling though, because you know how I feel about bullying on a general level. It was such a great feeling watching people who get off preying on the weak, and watching people be afraid. It was so cool to watch them be afraid. It was cool, so cool to watch them get theirs, man. Yep, Tears of the Sun.
True. And they ended up not having ammo at the end, so that's a possibility of why. It's tough, man. It's tough to make decisions like that
Yeah,
on the fly. It's like,
think about
but prop,
that, right?
yeah, it's tough,
Think
man.
about that. They didn't have enough at the end to
Yeah.
for all of them to
So,
make it.
and they could have mowed down those fools like right where they had the map, but they had to back up because they were low on ammo, and that's when
Well,
they all got
they
started
also
getting
would,
shot
but
down.
they also would have hit a lot of the people, right?
For sure, but I mean,
Like
they
Thanos
themselves
says,
would have
rain
been
fire. It's like, but our own troops.
like, yeah, but you gonna get it. All right,
Same thing with
yeah,
Braveheart, right?
my number one happens to be Platoon. Just
Oh!
yeah, I mean, I really love that movie too because I think it shows, a little bit of the darker side of a war that a lot of people did not agree with. When people came home from that war, I mean, that war is just a mess. The Korean War, like just how people were so against it, and the
Oh, it's
way that
Vietnam War.
they
Vietnam
expressed
War, not
their
Korean.
well, Korean and the Vietnam War,
Right.
just then that
Got it.
that area of the wartime, where people were just very against war. They didn't want any more wars. That how they were choosing the people to go to war. Um, and just like a lot of people expressing their hatred on that on the people coming back. There's another great movie about this dead presidents, about people coming
Ooh,
back from the
Lawrence
war.
Tate,
And that's one of my
Chris
all-time favorites too.
Tucker.
Yep. Just like how effective it was when people came back and just expressed all that hatred onto the soldiers as opposed to the people that were putting them in that situation. So it's like the soldiers got a tough experience over in war. They come back, they have PTSD, they have all these things to deal with, and they're getting not an easier life when you come back. You're getting almost scalded because you're going to help people. It was a very tumultuous time, I felt like, um, in the U.S. Armed Forces and veteran. It was a very tough time. So it was just
That's a
very
very good
interesting to
pick.
see that the dark side of what's happening over in war. And yeah, Vietnam, it was crazy, man.
Yeah, I mean, we went from World War II and Korea, where people were honored and came back with a parade and had a job waiting for them, to Vietnam, where a lot of these soldiers were vilified. But the worst thing the only thing worse than being vilified is being ignored. It's like, hey, I just got back from Nam. They're like, so what? You know what I'm saying? That's the worst feeling in the world, where you think you're doing something honorable. You sign up. A lot of people got drafted, and you're serving your country. But I think what's not said in the history books, that's thumped in our history books now, is a lot of people didn't even know why they were there. I went through my entire high school life, and Vietnam was covered so little. I didn't know until my 20s why we were even there. And then when I found out why we were there, I was even more upset. The Gulf of Tonkin is generally accepted as why the war started. There was alleged that they fired on us, and they found that it never happened, and so many of our brothers and sisters and parents have died because of a false flag operation. That's the truth. Look up your history, people. That is not a conspiracy. We were there already. We had,
The Gulf of Tonkin.
yeah. I mean, we had contractors there, and we had like a 300, like a Spartan style, like 300 style thing going on too. So that's something else people want to read up on. And for the reason why you picked your number one is the exact same reason why I picked my number one, and my number one is Full Metal Jacket. Goodbye, my darling. Hello, Vietnam. It is your one-stop shop, Rob McLean, for everything you need to know about the condition of the soldier and how they and the missions they had to perform. Tactically, we won almost every battle, but eventually lost the war, and we lost a lot of our loved ones in that war. So basically, anyone that's looking for the reason why we were there, how people felt about it, people's patriotism versus people's conscience. Like, he's wearing a peace symbol, and he's wearing a born to kill symbol at the same time. Colonel's like, what is that? Some kind of sick joke? The whole thing is about the duality of man. So, Mike said that's what I was thinking of Vietnam. So if you're looking for a movie where it conveys the sentiment, the emotional sentiment of different layers, not just the people that don't want to be there, not just the people that think it's your patriotic duty, like, no, we're soldiers, that's what we do, we're Americans. Boot camp. The boot camp scene is something you could just watch the first 30 minutes or the first hour and watch Gunnery Sergeant Hartman. And anything you need to know about Marine boot camp and Army boot camp, as well as Airborne and Ranger School, that dude was a hard ass. Arlie Emery, who was only brought there to train actors to be drill sergeants, was so good, they said, the hell with the actors.
Yeah,
With
we
the
need
actors,
you.
we got this guy. I'm Gunnery Sergeant Hartman. You will not laugh. You will not cry. And the first and last words out of your filthy sewers will be, sir. Do you maggots understand that?
Yeah, I mean,
Sound
some
off
people
like you
got a
got a
gift for
pair.
it, you know.
Yes. Make yours Platoon. Make mine Full Metal Jacket. We got a double win on our Memorial Day top 5 war movies of all time. Bam!
Bam.
Woo! All right, now, are you ready, Rob McLean? We are going
I'm
to go
ready.
to our favorite section. It wasn't with us this week, but it is back this week, and it is called Good Idea, Bad Idea. All right, let's do that. And let's do that. All right, we got the clock. We are now on the clock, Rob McLean.
Let's do it.
Sorry. Good idea, bad idea. Let's start over. Let's go back. All right. Good idea, bad idea, Rob. The Nets should try to acquire Bradley Beal.
Great idea if it doesn't cost them an arm and a leg. I think they need a third superstar. You don't know what's coming with KD. Kyrie got hurt again. I don't know if he's even going to stay. And then, I just think you need a guy like Bradley Beal to spread the floor, give KD something else to work with. So, absolutely.
The longer KD stays out, the more I'm thinking the Knicks actually made the right decision. Man, I put him through the rung. I even threw away my Knicks hat. I got a Brooklyn Nets hat because of KD and Kyrie Irving. So I'd like to keep my net hat. I'd like to keep those two superstars, and I'd also like to acquire Bradley Beal because a lot of times it takes two great superstars to win a championship. But that could be their Kevin Love. That could be their Rodman or what have you.
They're Ray Allen.
Yes, they're Ray Allen, who saved LeBron's legacy.
and the Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett Ray Allen too.
Yeah.
He was the third superstar to their duo too.
Didn't have my horn honk on that. Time's up. We go to question number 2. James Harrison claiming Tomlin gave him an envelope for laying out Muhammad Massaquoi.
I mean,
I'll go first. Bad idea.
Yeah.
I mean, that happened around the time of Bountygate. It is just not the smartest thing in the world to do. And Tomlin, whose reputation remains impeccable, he even survived tripping a player. People forgot on special teams, he stuck his foot out and tripped a player from getting back into the play. His neat and clean Eugene image has remained untainted, and he's dodged more bullets than Lindsay Lohan in court. Don't be saying this to out your boy.
I mean, I think it definitely happened, but I don't think it's what everybody's thinking. He probably just gave him a note saying, "Thank you for laying him out." I don't think he gave him any money at all.
Maybe.
He's kind of that kind of guy.
Or maybe, hey, you're fine with $75,000.
Yeah, right.
Here's an envelope.
There's a fine. Thanks for the hit.
Here's $75,000 to pay your fine. How
True.
about that?
I mean, that's still not that great though.
No. Good idea, bad idea. The Seattle Seahawks signing running back Carlos Hyde. Before there were talks about it, and now they signed him. In 6 seasons, he's racked up 4,370 yards and 32 touchdowns. Good idea or bad idea, Rob?
Real good idea. I love Carlos Hyde. I think, especially with Chris Carson, he got injured last year. I thought he was a really good looking back, but again, you can't do it alone. So I think you need to have that at least 2, maybe even 3 backs, trifecta, kind of give each other a chance to rest, but also get as much yards as possible. So I think it's a great idea.
I would love to see Russell Wilson hand off the ball instead of having to run for his life all the time. The reason why this man has football and longevity is because he does run and he is mobile, but at the same time, he gets out of bounds or he slides before people can hit him. He throws defenses fits. I'd like to see him continue to do the same thing. Carson was a pleasant surprise, even though he got hurt and came back. It can provide some relief, some one-on-one situations with their receivers if they have to stack more people in the box for Russell Wilson and to dual running back. And if they can do that every single play, make mine Carson and make mine Hyde. Did you hear the horn? You got the horn?
Perfect, perfect, perfect.
Yeah. Our timing's awesome. Rob, good idea, bad idea. Russell Wilson, we're going back to the Seahawks. Russell Wilson is interested in Antonio Brown. Who goes first?
Oh, you got it.
Rob, bad idea. Antonio Brown is the best receiver in the NFL and he's not even playing, but here's the problem. Will he make it to the first game? I don't know. Will this man brings the stupid with him. We're not going through the laundry list because this is a 1 minute lightning round thing, which you and me thought we should have an extra minute because this man does so many boneheaded things. He still has to get off the exempt list, so even if he gets on there, they don't expect to see him next year and a whole year of him staying out of trouble. I don't see it happening. Bad idea.
Staying out of trouble, but also, not playing football. Whether it could be playing football, not everybody's not playing football, but and I hope that he's staying in shape, and I hope he can give more years. But what does he got left? Maybe 3 years. He's in a skill position at 30 plus years old. It doesn't look good for him. So I would love for him to do that. I think maybe on a year or two deal, and then right off in the sunset. I think again a great place with a strong structure.
No doubt. All right, good idea, bad idea. The NFL is in the middle of voting for, and listen to this, folks, a fourth and 15 play to replace the onside kick. Rob, the floor is yours.
I just think that it would be cool, like Patrick Mahomes loves it and all that, because he's probably one of the only guys who can get a fourth and 14 whenever he wants. I think it's a bit unfair. I think it would just kind of completely change all the rules of the game where no one's going to be kicking off anymore. I would run a fourth and 15 anyway all the time then. If I was that confident in my offense, I would just run a fourth and 15. I don't really see why it would be effective at all if they're just trying to take away kickoffs in totality.
Bad idea, Rob. Bad idea. It's unfair to the team that built the lead to begin with. It's a bad idea because they're taking the foot away from football. Special teams. Also, it's a bad idea because if someone wants to kick off and fake the kickoff and do an onside kick, the rule doesn't exist anymore. There's nothing to fake. Sometimes people fake an onside kick because they have more time on the clock and they'll just kick off. And they get a better kickoff and not an apt return. No, keep the foot in football, man. Get rid of that nonsense. Get out of here. Go somewhere else with that. Last good idea, bad idea. Get ready, Rob. Mike Tyson is contemplating returning to boxing. Possibly, I think you mentioned bare knuckle fighting. Good idea, bad idea.
I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be a bad idea. I think, just in the essence that, and the same thing with the bare knuckle championship we were talking about before, $20 million to go bare knuckle fight. I think that he's had a long career with boxing, and I think that his whatever CTE has kind of kicked in already, and I think he needs to just chill, enjoy his life, make some longevity on the financial side outside of sports.
Look, depending on what the hell bare knuckle fighting is, if it's just boxing and if he fights a like-minded opponent like Ken Shamrock, who everyone wants to see get knocked out again, fine, do it. Fight Chuck Liddell. Fight someone with your hands. Do not get in there. Bare knuckle fighting includes mixed martial artists because even the old players will take your lunch money. Mike Tyson is one of the most dangerous, hard-hitting people in the world, and his legacy still stays intact, even though he's thinking of crazy things like this.
Yeah.
All right, that's it for good idea, bad idea. And let's get back to our split screen. Sorry, let's do that and that. Cool. So, Rob, before we go, Actually, at the end of that, I really wish commentators would stop talking about mixed martial arts and people who could fight. And I remember Stephen A. Smith at the end of a show 2 years ago talking about Carmelo Anthony, like you don't want to mess with him. He could fight in the UFC and win. He said it at the tail end of the show. And when he said that, every avid MMA fan, the casuals didn't care. But I'm like, what weight class? And don't you think he'll get them legs chopped?
Yo, he is not gonna fight nobody.
No.
He barely can stand up for himself on the basketball floor.
Stop.
How's he gonna fight in the ring?
Stop talking about guys who are just because they're tall and just because they look tough, push people their height because they know like 30 people are going to stand between you. No, no. Daniel Cormier, who's like 7 inches shorter than him, could be,
Would
And I'm not
mince
even
him.
talking about. All right, I'm sorry. I'm mentioning all the best people. No, like there are people, MMA fighters who aren't even in the UFC that can do that. You're not going to be Greg Hardy. Nobody's going to be Greg Hardy. And big up to Greg Hardy, by the way, who's just continuing this path of destruction and
Look
hard-earned
good.
decisions,
Look
man.
good.
My best fight I saw him was Alexander Volkov, the one he lost by decision, Yeah, good for him. And he's good job keeping his head low. Too, I mean, he's one of those players that got a path that's trying to do a redemption thing, I guess, and I'm not going to talk about that. What I'd like to talk about at the end, we got a little R.I.P. thing happened late last week. Longtime Utah Jazz coach Jerry Sloan passed away at age 79 through complications of Parkinson's disease and dementia, which is the worst thing to go through before you end, man. It's like one of those things where, I'm trying not to be too cold about it, but. And I'm not the guy that's gonna say better off dead, but if it's one of those things where you're suffering, man, and you just want to go, just go. God bless that man's long story career. One of two coaches to win 1,000 games, 1,000+ games with the same team. Guess who
Yeah.
the other one is?
Um.
Like think about someone who's been with the same team with a lot of success, and they're always in the playoffs all the time.
On the same team.
Like the Jazz were like in the playoffs all the time. Think about another team like that who's like always in the playoffs.
Popovich. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
My man, that's
Yeah,
cool.
man.
So,
Yeah.
big R.I.P. for them. Big shout out to people who have family members, who paid the ultimate sacrifice in a wartime situation, so we can be free to exercise
I,
our autonomy and do shows like
I
this.
wonder if he saw the Last Dance documentary.
Who?
That's Jerry Sloan. I mean, I don't know how rough his last couple of days were, but I wonder if he was able to see the Last Dance documentary because he was involved in it.
Yeah.
But again, dealing with a lot of
Yeah.
stuff in the mind, so difficult.
My father passed away too, and he had dementia at the end, and it was just not, man, dude, it's just not pretty, man. We'll have a whole nother episode about nutrition, about
True.
the Amen solution and things that I can list a bunch of foods that are great for your memory and help avoid memory loss, and foods that help you boost your testosterone without taking medications and all that stuff. Foods for iron, because I'm all about that. And I think both of us are doing a really good job with our health. You as a super athlete, and me, someone who's turning 50 next month. 2 months from now. So
There you go.
yeah, doing the military Ring of Fire all the way up to my birthday. That's my goal.
Well, what are we all doing for the Big 5-0?
I don't know. Maybe we have a quarantine thing going. I mean,
You know what I'm
it's
saying?
July 26th. There's time, hopefully.
Quarantine Q.
Yep. Dude, we ran basically, like 26 minutes over? Sorry for
casual.
you guys sticking it out, man. We know this episode usually averages about 50 to 52 minutes. Right now we're close. We're an hour plus. And for those of you that joined us on Facebook Live and Instagram Live, thank you for having us in your living room. Thank you for having us on your iPad. Thank you for having us on your iPhone while you're standing out online, waiting for your Starbucks with your mask on. Okay. For Rob, keep it McLean. I am Jason DeBeas, and I say, so long, love you. We're out. Come check out the Option Podcast on OptionVB.com. It's also available on iTunes and Spotify, and on YouTube under the NY Varsity Sports handle. You're going to love what you hear.